Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Sword and no, wrong show. Today on Retro Sci-Fi and Horror Cinema, we have Brian Walker of Brian's Drive-In Theater. Greetings, Brian. How are you?
I'm well tonight, Hercules. How are you this evening?
I'm doing incredibly well, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's show.
And so am I. It's the most
Awesome.
wonderful time of the year. It's Christmas horror and science fiction movies. This is the intersection that I love. I love it when a certain time of the year will intersect with my favorite genre, which is horror science fiction.
Mhm.
I consider the two together because the best horror, in my opinion, does have some sci-fi elements.
Yes,
The best science fiction has some horror elements.
very
So
true.
there's that. When I was a child, I think I was, oh golly, maybe 6 or 7 years old. We went to the drive-in one evening, and we saw a movie called Tales from the Crypt.
I remember that.
It was one of those British, I think it was Amicus. It was one of those British early '70s anthology movies, which they were so good at, every one of them I've ever seen has just been one of my favorite movies. Well, this one, the very first segment has Joan Collins in it from Dynasty, Empire of the Ants, The Opposite Sex, so many movies and television shows, and who is thankfully still with us at age 88. But anyway, she by the early '70s, her career was unfortunately like a lot of women her age. She was in her late 30s, early 40s, and
Mhm.
although she had a lot more to give, apparently. She was considered washed up by anybody who was casting a movie, and was just offered, kind of this, B grade, if that, quality picture. And instead of being, miffed about it and or trying to marry her way out of it, she slogged her way through it and was in some great horror and science fiction movies, to tell you the truth, some of my favorites. And in this particular film, Tales from the Crypt, she's in a 20-minute or so segment, and it has a great Christmas theme. Not to dole out too many spoilers, but in the movie, at the very beginning, she has murdered her husband, and Santa Claus figures out what she's done, and it goes from there. It's a great movie, and Santa Claus knows who's naughty and who's nice. Um, and I love movies like that.
Mhm.
It's so great to see punishment doled out so quickly, within the span of about 10 minutes. That never happens.
No.
Sometimes in order to watch your enemy die, you've got to wait for decades. In this case, not so much.
Well, they had like 20 minutes, so they had to make it count.
Anyway, it's a great movie. I have the Blu-ray of it. It's actually a Blu-ray with two movies that are, I believe, Amicus, which
Mhm.
was sort of, we could call it Hammer Plus. Amicus was British and made some good horror films. To tell you the truth, with a lot of the same actors that you saw in Hammer movies, and they didn't. They chose good actors when they were casting movies, whether they were casting somebody on the way up or on the way down. And it was B. This is B stuff, so they didn't have a whole lot of money. They got good performances out of people. These were quality actors that they were recruiting. They didn't recruit people just because they had name recognition. They recruited people who you could hit their marks and read a line convincingly. And these movies really show it. Yeah, they're not expensive, but to the average person, you wouldn't really know so much because they're very entertaining. They're scary. To tell you the truth, of the four vignettes in Tales from the Crypt, the one with Joan Collins is the very first one for a reason, because it reaches out immediately and grabs you. There's no British movies can be kind of slow and plodding,
Mhm.
but these vignettes are not. They like I said, this one hooks you immediately, and it keeps you all through that 20-minute segment. It doesn't let up. There's suspense. There's something going on every frame of the film. And if you have not seen Tales from the Crypt, which came out, I believe, in 1972, give it a look. Or better yet, it's so good. I would just go ahead and buy the Blu-ray like I did. I saw this movie, like I said, at the drive-in as a child, but as a late teen, early 20s, it was out on VHS, and it was one of those early. I mean, I hope the FBI is not listening, but it was one of those early VHS tapes that I made a copy of. In the early days, there was no copyright protect, and if you
Right.
had a booster between your two VHS player recorders, you could make about as good of a copy as the copy you rented. So
Right.
I did that a shocking number of times in the 1980s. Well, yeah, I spent my nickel. I thought I ought to make a copy of it.
Well, back then you could
That's
record
it.
from TV too. So a lot of times I remember when movies were playing that were hard to find, record the movie from TV and then use your second VCR to play it again and then record it without commercials.
Yes, cut the commercials out, exactly, because you cut out about a quarter of the viewing. You
Right,
don't have to fast forward either, which was always annoying because it would always go past, you
where you
know,
want to go.
where you wanted to be, and then you go, oh shit, do I have to back up, or do I just miss that 20 seconds, of the film? And in this household, we back up. So I'm not missing a second. I want to see the whole thing. I don't want to miss any dialogue.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I remember recording a lot of things from TV, and we had cable back then too. So a lot of the movies used to play on the cable, so they would wind up on a tape, and then people used to like swap tapes with each other. Again back in the day.
Yeah, we used to, when I was a kid, we did that with albums. We would,
Yes,
if there were like three or four of you that had fairly similar musical tastes, one of you, like usually me, because I had a job, I would buy the album, and then I had semi. Well, no, not semi. I had decent audio equipment, which I also bought because I had a job. So I would just make tapes for everybody. And I know that the FBI is like walking up to my front door right now
well,
for
strange
all,
things have
for,
happened. When,
for
when I
all of
had
my youthful copyright violations.
when I had a UHF show years ago, that was something I used to tell people when they came on. What do you call it? It's happened not in my shows, but in the studio where somebody said something on the live UHF television, and they're leaving, and the cops are like waiting for them downstairs. So. I don't think that the FBI is coming to your door, but it has happened where people said things, and
Yeah, so you can just bleep bleep all of this out. We should be all right. Plus, there's also no evidence that I truly violated this copyright, because all of that stuff I'm sure is in a landfill somewhere and has been, for a long time.
as are many of mine, and whatever I still had that I treasured, the recent flood destroyed. So
Yeah, uh, I was so sorry to hear about that, especially since for this library installation that I was talking about before we went on tonight. Um, all that memorabilia that had I'm so sorry to hear that. It had to have hurt.
well, yeah, it did, but again, I can't take any of it with me. That as I get older, I realize that too. really enjoy things while I have them. And I've accumulated a remarkable amount of things. So,
Well, it's hard not to. We're Americans, so
yeah.
we're not. We're used to fat. We're used to too much stuff. And I got to tell you, like I was saying before we went on tonight, after looking at all my movie memorabilia that I've been going through for the past few weeks, I gosh, I was a spoiled kid, and I never thought so at the time. I thought my parents were horrible and we were wretchedly poor, and that was clearly not the case because I started looking through all this stuff and there's so much of it that I didn't even remember. I
Hmm.
have a I have a couple of old Super 8 millimeter films that are still in the shrink wrap.
Wow.
Meaning I never opened it up. So, and I had a copy of it's a small digest version, but it's color and sound of Star Wars, which was even at the time, 40 some years ago, that stuff was hard to come by and really expensive because it was so popular.
Yes.
And I had a copy of I had two different copies of Superman, the 1978 version with Christopher Reeve. I had Grease, which, as I recall, during the summer of '78 was fantastically popular. I think I went to
Yes.
the theater 3 times to see it, which everybody seems to find interesting because I don't really like the film. But I guess I didn't have anything better to do that summer, and it was so popular. And the soundtrack was a lot of fun, so maybe that's what I saw in it, or maybe I was just going with different friends, uh, to see it. Um, but at this time of year, you do think a lot about family and friends and nostalgia for the past. And I got to tell you, a good Christmas horror film can bring it all back for me.
Yes.
And the Tales from the Crypt, the Amicus version, so much fun. And like I said, Joan Collins, great actress, a real trooper too. Not too proud, to do. A lot of actors, especially back at the time, were too proud to do what they saw as cheesy horror films. Well, for one thing, they weren't cheesy, and for another thing, that's how you cemented your reputation among younger audiences. That was your exposure. You
And
know,
conventions you can go to
or
forever. They pay you to
yeah,
come in to conventions for the rest of your life,
exactly.
basically.
Yeah. Suddenly you've got street cred. Once
Right.
you've done a horror film, and I mean, why would you shy away from something like that? Because that opens you up to an entirely new audience. Yeah, it's not an A production. Yeah, it might be filmed in 8 days. So learn your lines quickly, and you go enjoy the ride. You go for it because it gives you a whole new audience. You can really camp it up, in a horror
Right.
film in ways that you can't do in any other genre. You can't, if you camp it up too much in a drama, it turns into a silent movie where everybody is, bugging their eyes out or doing jazz hands, or something like that, where you have to, use everything that you've got in the frame. You can go crazy in a horror film, and instead of looking like, a lousy actor, it can look like that you're really using your instrument. You're going for it, and the more you can bug your eyes out and roll them, the better. And being in a horror film has to take a lot of effort, and it has to take all of your energy to be
Mhm.
scared. And some people are naturally, you know, either their facial features, or maybe they have a sort of a dark, brooding personality. Some people just have the knack for horror. Christopher Lee, if you look at him, I mean, he wasn't wasn't good enough looking to be a matinee idol, but wasn't ugly either. He wasn't ugly enough to be in horror, but he was able to transform into that ugly side. He was a good vampire.
Mhm.
He did all of the Universal monsters pretty well, quite honestly. Um, and that was a testament to his acting, talent, really. Those you can Anybody could probably hone in on one monster, but to play all of them like he did, that could not have been easy. Because you have to do you as a vampire, you have to be dark and charismatic, and you have to have charisma while killing people, and that's got to be tough. It's hard to have charisma and fangs at the same time. But
But he managed to appear. He
you
was
got
in
that.
Lord of the Rings as Saruman, and he was in Star Wars as Count Dooku, and he was in Reg Park's Peplum film Hercules Against the Vampires.
And just between you and me, my favorite Peplum.
One of mine too.
The
That
color,
Reg,
the color and lighting in that, and Reg Park is just amazing
yes.
in his Peplums. And Christopher Lee, it's like, wow, the best in each genre, and you put them together, and then Mario Bava, it's like, wow, it's the trifecta for me. It's definitely my favorite Peplum for so many, and it's a genuinely good movie.
It's one of
Um,
my favorites too, although I prefer
it
two of Alex
is my
Still's
favorite.
movies better, like
Mhm.
Hercules Against the Moon Men and Samson and His Mighty Challenge are my two favorite Peplums.
And to tell you the truth, when I was talking to my mom tonight, and she and I were reminiscing about seeing, the
Mm,
old the Joan Collins Tales from the Crypt from the early '70s. Uh, I started thinking about my favorite Christmas horror films, and yesterday after early afternoon, the unit that I work with, which is essentially student affairs, at the university where I'm employed, and I'm part of student affairs. Um, we all got together for a holiday potluck, and we haven't had one, since before COVID. So this was wow, it's going back to the old days. And we were chatting about what we were doing, and I mentioned our podcast that we're doing right now. I said, "Well, I got a podcast tomorrow night," and my the dean that I report to said, "Well, what's the topic?" And I said, "Well, it's Christmas horror movies." She said, "Well, there aren't any of those."
oh
So,
wow!
oh, yes, there are. And I rattled off about 20 different titles immediately. And she said, "Well, she said, I've got to check this out." It's like, oh, yeah, you do. Because those are my favorite Christmas movies,
Uh,
quite honestly. Um, Last night, for example, we probably watched my favorite Christmas movie, and that's Bob Clark's Black Christmas.
mhm.
Bob Clark, as you probably know, directed one of my favorite low budget public domain horror movies called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things,
Yes, yes.
which has the title alone makes the
Alone.
movie. If you can come up with a killer title and a passable poster, people are going to show up for it. And that is one of my favorite horror movie titles. And to tell you the truth, the movie backs it up. It is creepy. Um, it's not badly shot, even though you can tell that they had no money because you can hear it in the audio. Um, but it's so much fun. And Bob Clark had he did some of my favorite movies, quite honestly, and he never had much of a budget. He did a lot of people's favorite Christmas movie, which is called A Christmas Story with Peter Billingsley and Darren McGavin. It's the one that Turner Classic Movies will show, or I'm sorry, I think it's Turner Broadcasting, TBS, will show in a 24-hour span. They'll run it like 26 times over the Christmas holiday. Um, it's so heartwarming, and it reminds me, even though it takes place in the late 1930s, and I would have been the same age in the early 70s. But it reminds me a lot about my childhood and how much different things were back then. Dare I say, more wholesome, really, or maybe they weren't. It just seemed that way. I
They
don't know.
seem that way. I think. Looking back on a lot of things that were there during growing up, they're not as wholesome as they initially.
Well, and a lot of people think that Sodom and Gomorrah is now that everything now is Babylon. And from what I recall, there was a lot of Babylon back then too.
Yeah,
It just didn't get so much lip service. People were doing the same horrible things back then. You just didn't hear about it as much.
right. And now we have the internet, and you find out about things minutes after they happen anywhere in the world. Back then you had to wait weeks and plenty of time for somebody to respin it.
And you know what? You can know too much about a certain event or subject. You can really zone in on something too much, and perhaps you shouldn't. And I have seen that numerous times over the years. Certain causes, which I think were at one point valid, just get beaten to death because it's over-examined and just pulled apart by both sides. And there's nothing in the middle. It's just wolves on either sides, ripping something apart. It's ruined many a good movement, I think.
Yep. Topic for another show.
Yeah, oh, it is. I'm sorry to go down memory lane.
Oh, no, no,
But
no, no.
but
It's
Bob
just,
Bob Clark's Black Christmas was actually remade a few years ago, and it wasn't a failure, but it wasn't a giant success when it was released in 1974. But it has a great cast. It has Keir Delay from um, Space Odyssey.
uh,
It's got Andrea Martin, one of my you and I both love Second City Television,
yes.
SCTV, and Andrea Martin, I always thought was probably the most talented person on SCTV. She could do anything. Lorna Minnelli was probably my favorite character, other than Joey or other than Lola Heatherton. I liked Lola a lot too. But Lorna Minnelli was probably my favorite. She did a really mean Indira Gandhi as well. It was pretty good. She had so much talent, and in this movie, she just plays a very straight role.
Mm,
She doesn't camp it up. She doesn't camp it up at all. There is no comedy to what she does. It's a very straight, dramatic role, and a lot of people who do comedy well, interestingly, also seem to do drama really
mm,
well. I don't know if it's oftentimes people who are known who make people who make other people laugh have a really dark side.
right.
I don't know why. I don't know why that's the case, but I'm having
It's,
some sinus issues. Right? I
uh,
don't know why that's the case, but it does happen.
yes, it does. And it's a cliche too, with like the clown movies and people are afraid of the clowns, and the clowns are there to make you laugh. And
I don't
there's,
I don't understand the whole fear of clowns thing. I know that there are people who are legitimately afraid of it.
yes,
I get that part of it, but I just don't see it. And I kind of like my comedy with a bit of horror. There again, like Peplum horror, comedy and horror mix pretty well too. Um, I just, golly, Black Christmas though, another great movie. So much fun to watch at Christmas because it takes place on a college campus. It was actually shot in Toronto. There
mhm,
again, one of my favorite cities, and it's fun seeing the location around the University of Toronto where they shot it because my partner and I went there about 15 years ago or so and toured the campus quite a bit. And it's just fun to see, oh, we were there. Oh, we were there, Uh, but there again, a really good movie. Margot Kidder is fantastic in the role that she has a very unlikable character, and she portrays that. She does the best that she can. Her character is sort of an alcoholic, um, crass, sarcastic uh, undergraduate who might graduate in a year or so, who seems to be wealthy to boot, and those people are always loathed on college campuses. But she does a fantastic job at that character. You buy it immediately. And I've worked on a college campus since 1988, so I have seen similar people like this cycle through, and she plays it to the hilt. I don't know how she zoned in on that particular personality type, but it is well represented among college campuses, and probably even more so then than it is now.
So she was probably on a college campus or had a relative that was on a college campus and picked up on the archetype.
Well, yeah, and she probably did. She probably picked out. She might have based it on somebody that she saw when she was in college. I think that's so tempting for an actor to do when they're trying to grasp onto a personality. They reach for something that they've seen before because that's going to be the most honest representation. Quite honestly, something they haven't made up so much is that they've based on what they've witnessed. And I, like I said, I have seen that person on the college campus where I work. So I've seen about 10 of them. Well, more than that. But she plays it so effectively. To tell you the truth, if you ever watch any of her other films, the early ones that she did, or even the later ones, she has a real intensity in her performances. She doesn't half-ass any performance. It's always at 100% at least, if not a little better than that. Such a good actress, and I hate what happened to her later in life. Like so many actors, no matter how talented they are, some of them just get cast aside, and it's so unfair because she could have been acting today. She could have been on television or in movies. She was so good, and to see her career wither just because she got a little older, I don't get that.
I don't get that either, but unfortunately, it is a thing in our culture. I was in the human services, and before I guess it's some certain time during the Bush administration it became really difficult to move around the field. But prior to that, it was fairly easy to move around the field, especially if you had a lot of experience. But as I got older, I noticed that became a factor in the interviews. So I got to see ageism like first hand.
Oh boy.
So I'm sure if for an actress especially, it must have been a million times more difficult because again, you get typecast in these more peripheral roles, if at all.
Well, the most horrible thing, especially when it comes to actresses of the past, is that once they, no matter what their talent level was, for most of them, once they passed that age, they just weren't seen as anything. And some of my favorite actresses just sort of either had to deal with, declining parts, almost going down to bit parts, or had to switch careers entirely. And such a shame, as people were so talented.
Yes.
And maybe it was some career mismanagement. I mean, some of them did hang on. Some of them did just do like supporting roles, largely in TV shows. They kept working. Some of them didn't, though. And to have all that experience, and to have talent, and to be able to project that on screen, well, what a shame. And you just because you got older, that's nothing you can control. And no, and some people try. I mean, they have horrible things done to their faces. That's just so wrong.
I agree.
It is just so wrong. that gray hair and those wrinkles are there for a reason. It means you've got experience.
And you
You've
do.
been through, you've been through some stuff. So it makes you a sage. It doesn't make you dead. You learn from these people. You get to know your elders a little bit. I did when I was young, and I learned so much. And I was probably an old soul even when I was a kid. But I got to know older people, and they taught me so much.
Yes.
They can cut the learning curve down so fast for you. You know what I mean?
Yes, you do.
They can, and you can avoid making some needless mistakes by just opening your ears. And if it's somebody you trust, if it's somebody who you think has who's intellectual, who's smart enough, who's had enough experience, really.
Well, we talked the other day. Age does teach you wisdom. You do realize certain things that you couldn't have known before, you couldn't have realized before. So,
Well, and it teaches you that in youth, what you thought was important is not important
it's not
at
important. No.
all. None of it. Yeah. Actually, probably the opposite of what you thought was important. At least that's been my experience. I mean, yeah, and we were, like you said, we were talking just the other day, and at one point, I used to think that life was measured by how much money you made, your possessions, what, and the quality of the perceived quality, I guess I should say, of those possessions. Um, and you get to a certain point in life, and you figure out that no, that's not the stuff that matters at all.
No, and the understanding only comes as you progress through life. I work with people who are terminally ill, and the ones that were still lucid, I had lots of conversations with them. They knew they weren't leaving that bed,
Yeah.
and it was really very interesting, and it did help shape my life. They didn't regret, like you said, they didn't regret not having a certain career, or not attaining to a certain level on a career ladder, or not earning a certain amount of money. It's like little things that most people take for granted or don't even think about that were important to them, and that they had regrets about. They didn't say something to somebody that they wanted to say. They didn't go somewhere that they could have gone. They didn't do something that they could have done. And again, small but meaningful things. So all the things that we pursue when we're younger, like you said, a lot of them are a waste of time, but we don't know that, and nobody can make us believe it when we're that age.
That's now that part of it's true. I probably wouldn't have listened to
Neither would I.
anybody, but I had a really good mentor when I was a young adult, and he wore me down enough to the point where I knew that when he said something that I probably should listen. Um, Especially when would go to him for advice, which I frequently did. Anytime I was upset about particular personal um, issue, I would go talk to him, and he would always talk me through it incessantly. So, quite honestly, he was kind of pedantic after a while. It's like, okay, I've learned a lesson. We can talk about something else now. Uh, but anyway, I was so fortunate to have him in my life. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And oh golly, I just haven't found another mentor. I guess I'm too old to have a mentor. Maybe I'm supposed to be the mentor.
You
Maybe
are.
I know, but I didn't have that much wisdom. Yeah, I don't. I guess I should say I don't have that much. I don't have enough wisdom to say the things that Chuck, my mentor, told me.
Well,
But
according to Socrates, the ancient Athenians, the wisest know that they know nothing. So there you go. Maybe you're wiser than you think.
what I end up doing is just putting his advice to me. I just end up paraphrasing it.
Okay, there you go.
I don't say, well, my friend Chuck once said. I just said, well, And I just put it in my own words. And then
There you
I'm like, ooh, the sage. Like, well, no, I'm really just stealing somebody else's lines.
as did your mentor, most likely. Most likely.
Very true. Anyway, going back to Black Christmas, if you haven't seen this film, please watch it because it's not it. It's a lower budget horror film, but it's got a great cast. John Saxon, Lynn Griffith, that is one of my favorite Canadian actresses. She was in. I don't know what everybody's going to think about this, but one of my top 10 favorite movies is Strange Brew, which was a film that came out in 1983. And it's Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas as Bob and Doug McKenzie from Second
I
City
remember that.
Television. It's a cheesy movie, and it's fairly clean humor, to tell you the truth. There's not a lot of swearing, or there's no nudity or anything like that. And such a fun movie, and just as goofy as all get out. And I could watch it every day for the rest of my life, to tell you the truth. And I loved Bob and Doug McKenzie on SCTV so much, and having a whole movie of them. And it's a really low budget movie, so that makes it even better for me. It's just such a great movie. And like I said, Lynn Griffith is the female protagonist in it. And she's been in a lot of other things, but that's the thing I remember her in most, other than Black Christmas. Very good Canadian born actress. That said, there are some other people in it who've had some great careers. Keir Dullea, we mentioned earlier, Margot Kidder, Olivia Hussey from Romeo and Juliet. Is the main female character, and she's the one that lives. I guess I probably shouldn't say that; it's a spoiler. She's the only one in the house, though, that is still alive at the closing credits. Usually a good thing. It means you got paid for.
And now you would have to wait till the end of the credits to see if she actually did live, because since Marvel started doing that, a lot of movies are doing that. You got to wait till the middle and then the end of the credits to see what actually happened or will happen, or
Yeah, that's very true. But if you watch the movie, there's although it's a good straight up horror movie, there's some comedy bits in it. There are some bits that are there to make you laugh. And it kind of like throws it into almost a black comedy, but yes and no at the same time. It's more complex than just a low budget horror movie. You can watch it a number of times and you come away with a different attitude about it with each viewing. Very different, very different.
that's usually the case with some of the old movies. That as I watch them now with older eyes, it becomes a different movie almost sometimes, and it isn't
You
what
look
it
for
felt.
you look for different things, and you even though the plot might be a common one, even within that plot, as an older person, you're going to look at it in a different light. And I got to say, I'm not into bashing art for any reason. I'm not into
Right.
art is of a period, and what was acceptable, what was heralded, 40 or 50 years ago, might be anathema now.
Yes.
But I don't think you can say, well, let's bury this, because no,
Right.
that was of its period, and it's probably a brilliant representation of its period. So keep it, because it's part of history, and learn from it. If you find this disgusting or shallow, great, but learn from it. Let's not repeat this mistake. And
That's very
and I find that's a problem with a lot of media that I see, especially when somebody does a remake. When somebody announces that they're going to do a remake of a particular project or a particular picture that I like, I cringe because I wonder why. Why are you doing this? Are you ripping off the title? Is this a project that you really love and you love this story as much as I do? Well, great. Then I'm probably am going to be more interested in it. Oftentimes, though, what I usually find is that the original is the greatest. You can never really replicate that originality, that spark. There was something. If you're going to remake, a particular piece of art, if you're going to remake a movie or a television show, you've got to have. It's got to be more than just a remake. You've got to add something to it.
right.
And 99% of them are just it's so basic. It just doesn't do anything for the project at all. And then the producers wonder why it withered and died on the vine. You can't just like take a a well-known film or television title and then exploit it. And you have to have you have to have something behind it, and it can be done well. Uh, but it's so hard to do it well, and you have to invest some time, and you have to pay your writers because your writers are everything. And I think that's where so many productions skimp. They don't want to pay the writer anything at all, and that's the person you should probably pay the most.
Especially if you're going to
Yes, because your script is going to make or break you. The more clever your script is, or the funnier your script is, or the more biting or cynical, um, that's where you're going to get your audience from. you know, you don't want a milk toast audience. You want an audience who's as hateful and as cynical as you are, or as I am. I guess I should say.
or engaged just wants it to be.
But as hateful or cynical as I am, not as you are. You don't seem that way.
No, that's one of the things I learned from people lying in their beds and not being able to get up. Life is really short, and it
Boy,
passes.
isn't it though? Oh my goodness. In some ways, mentally, I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, you're old. But in mentally, I sometimes I'm like 16 years old,
Mhm.
you know, which is embarrassing, at this age. But there are times when I have the same thought processes
Yes,
that I had back then, which I'm not proud of by any means. But I never mentally feel old. I don't feel like I'm 90 years. I never feel like that at all. I always seem to mentally feel younger than I apparently look when I gaze into a mirror.
and unless life has traumatized us in some way, we don't really
Which
change
which
much.
can.
Who we are as kids is who we are now. Like I took early retirement, so I'm retired, which I can't wrap my head around. but
I
um,
can. I'm
but
going to do it too. So
it's
I can wrap my head around that.
it feels strange because like last time it seems like I was a teenager, and now I'm entering the job market. Now it's like the job market's something there for extra money, but
Hmm.
it's very interesting. And again, you could tell somebody that and they might be able to get it intellectually, but until you find yourself there, there's no way you can like really absorb what it means until you're there facing what it means.
Well, that's true. And the old saying that youth is wasted on the young.
Yes.
But it really is. That's why something like the picture of Dorian Gray is so appealing, because you can dip your toe in both waters. You can have the knowledge and the gratification of having the knowledge of somebody in late middle age or older, but enjoy the lack of pain, the lack of joint pain, I guess I should say, of being young.
Amen to that. That's why it's a common theme in literature and movies. Like you mentioned, Dorian Gray. That captures the whole feeling perfect.
Well, I mean, it's a fantasy that we all have. It's just continuing to live but ceasing to age.
And on that note, our conversation's coming to a close for today. Brian, I always have a great time conversing with you. Thank you for bringing back movies, memories that I hadn't thought about in a very long time. Happy holidays, and we will talk again soon.
Yes, we will. And happy holidays to you. And I hope your holiday season is filled with a lot of cheer and you're surrounded by your friends and family.
Ditto to you. Thank you very much. And how can people enter the world of Brian's Drive-In Theater and contact you?
Point your browser at briansdrivein-theater.com, and that is Brian with an I. And if you want to interact with me socially through social media, of course, you can always go to Facebook and type in Brian's Drive-In Theater, and you will get to my page. And I love interaction with followers. It's been so much fun over the past. Oh golly, it's been almost 24 years. As a matter of, it'll be 24 years in February of in February of 2022.
And for those of you who are into retro movies, you have to visit the website. It is a treasure trove of information. It is an internet shrine that's been there for a quarter of a century, growing and evolving, yet still retro in and of itself. So it's a retro site that's now become retro.
Yeah, the HTML the coding is very retro, as a matter of fact.
And thanks again, and thanks, Greg. And I will talk to you guys very soon.
Okay, have a happy holiday season, Hercules.
Thanks, you too. And thanks to everybody for joining us. This will be on YouTube this weekend, and I will post a link to it on Facebook. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.